So 2 years ago, I had very debilitating anxiety, and I wasn't even able to leave the house or to go into the backyard by myself. And this past winter, I went to Belize with my classmates. Hi, I'm Victoria Reid, and I'm not who I was 2 years ago. So a quote I've always loved says that you will know the quality of a person by their reputation and who their friends are. So I thought that today I'd let my friends tell you who I am, because I think they can do a better job of it than I can. And I think what they have to say will better show the journey I've been on and the fruits I'm able to produce now than I could get across alone. So, first is my best friend, Ginger. She met me when I was in probably the most hopeless time of my life, but she always believed in me and always saw the best in me, even when I couldn't see it myself. And I definitely couldn't. A week before my 18th birthday, I went out into my backyard, and I was feeling the most hopeless that I ever had. I'd been struggling with anxiety and depression for at least 4 years at that point, and it reached a climax where I didn't see the point in continuing living like that. If that is how my life was going to be, then I didn't want it. And as a final desperate attempt, I guess, I cried out to God and I asked him to not lay out my whole life story before me and tell me everything that was going to happen, but just show me there was a reason that I was fighting so hard. He had a direction for me to go in that was worth it. And I held my breath and I listened for that still small voice, and it felt like the whole world was holding its breath with me. I always say that time stopped. I live on a busy street and the cars stopped driving by. The birds on the wire stopped ruffling their feathers, stopped chirping, there was no wind. But the still small voice that I thought would come never did. And so for a long time, I took that as a sign that God had abandoned me. And I lived, but I lived without hope. And that is the place that I started Vertical at. I also have my mom, who has always been my rock and my supporter and has always believed in me. But we both worried for me and worried that I wouldn't be able to graduate high school. I've struggled with a lot of executive functioning things, and we didn't know if I would be able to handle all that Vertical had to throw at me. But even just stepping into the building for the first time, I felt a lightness and an excitement that I hadn't for a long time. And so I took that as some sort of sign that this was a place where I would be able to grow. And I don't think anybody could have predicted how much that would end up being true. The first week that I was here, I talked to Mr. Osborne, who was teaching Know What You Believe, and he asked us if we'd ever experienced a miracle. And that was the first time I'd thought of that night since it happened. And it made me take a second look at it and see maybe God is telling me something different than I originally thought. And so he listened to my story and he asked some questions. And he said maybe God was calming the storm for you like he did for the disciples in the boat. And like when he walked on water, he was showing you that he was there with you in the midst of the storm. And that made me rethink who God is and my relationship with him, and started me on a journey to learn more about him and learn more about who I was in relation to him. My mentor for the second semester and leadership teacher for first semester was Miss Susan. She encouraged me in a lot of ways to grow and to learn more about the people around me than the assumptions I made based on what my thought process and my view of myself was. One of the moments I best remember her doing that is when I Again, like in high school, I submitted a homework assignment late and half done because I was struggling to get things done. And my teacher for that class challenged me and gave me some critique, basically saying that I could do better. And I took that in a very negative light. But she told me to take a second look at it and go confront him and talk to him about it, because the teachers here always want to pour into you and make you better. He was not going to be the kind of teacher who was just going to tear me down for the sake of it. So I did. I went and I talked to him, and I realized that what he was trying to do was challenge me. And so I have never been one to back down from a challenge. So the next time that I submitted my homework, I did meet his expectations and rise to the challenge, and I did it better than I had before. Speaking of rising to challenges, Mr. Wheeler, who is the head visionary at Vertical and also a mentor to a lot of us, as some of my classmates have mentioned, has always tried to call us to a higher purpose because he knows the potential and he can see the potential in all of us. And Live to Lead was a moment when I had to rise to that challenge of stepping into a leadership position that he knew that I could step into, but I didn't. We were having a discussion at this event as our classmates group, and we're all having a discussion. I don't remember what about anymore, but I remember that it was something I was passionate about and that I had a lot of thoughts about. And in that discussion, my classmates all said that they thought that what I had to say was worth speaking for. And so they chose me to stand up for our table and speak to a crowd of adults that I had never met before, which was terrifying. But I did, because I never backed down from a challenge. And after that, a bunch of those strange adults that I'd never met before came up to me afterwards and said that what I had to say inspired them and they found really insightful. And I think I learned for the first time that people want to hear what I have to say, and I can connect with an audience if I speak genuinely and passionately about something, which it helped, again, to change my mindset in just small incremental ways. If anyone can change your entire worldview, it is Mr. Dillow. He was our discipleship teacher, and he coached us in mentorship and in life in general throughout our time at Vertical, and including me. I did not always know how to answer all of his questions, but I always thought deeper about things and did not take things at surface level, like my faith, like my view of other people and my relationship with them. And bringing that out of the classroom and being challenged to do that in a place like an apprenticeship second year was scary, but I never backed down from a challenge. I really wanted to get an apprenticeship that year. We were all challenged to find one, and I found a connection at a local college in the theater department, and this contact did not seem to want to talk to me. But she wasn't getting back to my emails and my texts, but with the help of my classmates and of Mr. Dillow, I persisted and I persevered, and I took the initiative because I knew that what I had to give was something that they could benefit from. And I'll never forget being able to call Mr. Dillow and telling him that I got it. And I couldn't have gotten it, and I couldn't have gotten where I am right now if it weren't for all of my incredible classmates who have been my friends and my support system, but more than just my friends, my family. They have supported me, and they have persevered with me through overcoming all of my anxiety and daily panic attacks at the beginning. through getting my driver's license and having to drive me to places, helping me catch up in classes when I missed them due to driver's ed or things. And the moment I realized, I think, that we were all as bonded as we are now, and that they were going to have my back through everything, was first semester when I was going through a rough period of feeling very discouraged. And even without talking to them, they could see that I was down, that I was discouraged, and they took initiative and they decided that they weren't going to let me stay in my own head and in that dark place. And they 3D printed me a little dragon egg. I love dragons. So they 3D printed me a little dragon egg that could open, and they stuffed notes inside of it. Notes of encouragement, notes of telling me how much they loved me being in their class and how valuable I was as a member to the group. And I'd never been a valuable member to a group before. And so that was a moment when I realized not only do they care about me and do I matter in this place, but we are going to support each other and we are going to have each other's backs through everything. Through 2 years, through Belize, through me wavering back and forth for months on whether I was even going to go to Belize. I have a horrible fear of flying. I didn't think that my anxiety would let me go overseas. But then I decided that was stupid, and I shouldn't listen to what my anxiety says I should do. I should do what I want to do. And that I would regret it for the rest of my life if I did not go on this trip. I regretted not going the first missions trip to Morocco, and I was not going to let myself regret not going to Belize. So I had to do a bunch of brain jujitsu to convince my brain that this was a good idea, but I did, and I went anyways. And I did not think that I would have as good a time as I did. I knew that I would have the people around me to support me. I knew I'd have fun and get to experience new things. I didn't have a single panic attack on that Belize trip. I had a panic attack at least one, dwindling down to once a month. The Belize trip, nothing. That was insane for me. And through everything that has happened, through everything that I've been able to accomplish, I think a good way to show how much I've improved is introducing my boyfriend, Asher. He met me more recently. We've been together for about three-ish months. Almost 3 months, something like that. But he has already been able to see the fruit of all of the journey that I have been through. He was my rock through my childhood pet, my cat, Curry, passing, through supporting me in that final push to get my driver's license, and now through graduation. And I think I can stand here and say for the first time, and say something that I never thought I'd be able to say, is that even though an era is ending, I'm not a kid anymore. My childhood is ending, and I'm having to step out in faith in God and in my own abilities to be able to handle myself as an adult and as a young professional, as our facilitators always like to say. But interviewing everyone for my capstone, I realized that that is something that I can do. That the change that I've gone through isn't all just my own perception of things, and it isn't temporary just because I am in an environment like this that encourages that. It's permanent, and I will continue to grow and change as my life continues wherever that ends up heading. I don't want to stand here and say that I am perfect, because I certainly am not. I have been changed forever, but I have so much more to go. One of my favorite Bible verses is in Philippians, and I put part of it up there, but I want to read all of it for you. That says, "Not that I have already obtained this or been perfected, but I press on, if only I might take hold of that for which Messiah Yeshua took hold of for me. Brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself as having taken hold of this, but this one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining towards what is ahead. I press on towards the goal of the reward of the upward calling of God in Messiah Yeshua." And I guess I'll just close by saying when I came to Vertical, I didn't have faith in God. I didn't have friends or hope for the future. And now I have friends that feel like a family, and I have belief that through everything, God will be there with me, and He has a bright plan for my future, and I know He is going to be an active part in the rest of my life. I want to thank my friends for being my family when I needed it, and for never giving up on me, even when I was about ready to, and for my parents, for also believing in me, and even when I didn't tell them everything that was going on with Vertical, for being there to support me and encouraging me in all of my dreams. For my facilitators, for speaking into my life, and for believing that I could be better than I thought I could be. And for my best friend and my boyfriend for being my rock when I was when I was up and down and I was needing support. So thank you all for listening. Who has the first question? To hear probably more than I wanted anything in that moment, but I don't know why. I don't think I'll ever know why He didn't choose to speak to me in that moment, but I can guess that maybe it was because I was supposed to carry that moment with me for a little bit longer than I wanted to, and that He knew the journey that I was supposed to be on, and I think it turned out well, so I thank Him for that, even though I don't necessarily know why I couldn't hear it in that moment.
I want to follow that up because I knew that's what you were going to say, that you did long for it, and I would offer, I think that was the point. God will go silent in our lives from time to time, and I think He wanted you to feel belonging, not because He wanted to know, Victoria, you love me. I think He wanted you to know how much you long for Him. I think He possibly knew that you needed to know that. That you needed to feel that you love Him. He loves you. Victoria, God would say, I love you. I think you need to know how much you love me. So I think God would point it that way. And it pushed you into your friends.
Yes, it
Your
did.
friends, his other children. I think
Yeah.
God let silent for a little while because He wanted to push you into your friends so you could find Him there. But that's just a beautiful story for you and for everybody in your class. It's been beautiful to watch.
Gabe?
Victoria, out of all the scalers and the people I've met here, you really symbolize one word: it's faith. I was telling someone yesterday that faith is, we as humans, we only know so much. We only have so much competencies and skills and things we can do in this life. And compared to God's, like if we're here, God's like 20 stories up there. And we're just never going to achieve that. We're not meant to. But the gap is closed by faith. And out of all the people I know, like in this room right now, like your faith is one of the strongest. And just, yeah, again, the agency that Todd was talking about just shines so brilliantly. And I think that's one of the most brilliant assets that God will pull out of your life and your testimony to show other people in your life. So take heart. You've grown so much, and no one can take your faith. It is yours. It's locked away in your heart. So just be encouraged, and there's just so much beautiful future ahead of you where God is going to use you for His kingdom. It's just exciting. So sorry, not a question, but it's just exciting.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
What's your next step?
After Vertical? So I plan to start beauty school after this. Probably after the summer, I'll start beauty school to get my cosmetology license. I want to start a dressmaking business. I made the outfit that I'm wearing today, so I'm hoping that I can use the skills that God has given me there. I'd like to get married at some point as well. But whatever God has for me, I'm excited to find out about it.
What you and I have talked about over time is that God gifted you with the ability to recognize every emotion. How will you use that and your faith to make an impact?
I am a very empathetic person, as we've talked about, and I think that while it can be a blessing and a curse sometimes, that empathy also gives me a unique ability to be able to connect with people and to see where people are hurting. And I pray, and I've seen a few instances of where I've been able to touch on where someone is hurting and be able to speak life into that area of their lives. And I hope that I can continue to grow in that, to bring God to more people in a world that's hurting. One last question?
Go ahead.
Okay. So you talked a little bit about this, and I heard some of your journey with setting all of this up, but getting in contact with other people can be a bit of a challenge sometimes. So with setting up this many interviews to try and get this much information, how did you handle all of that, and how did that process go?
For some of them, it was not as difficult as I thought that it would be. A lot of my classmates were just completely willing to, even though they have super busy schedules and were busier than I am most of the time, were willing to sit down with me and to talk with me and to give me honest feedback that I greatly appreciate. For some others, it was just a matter of emailing them and seeing the closest time spot that they could have, which meant that I got a couple interviews in mere days before capstone day. But I got them all in, and the feedback is something that I greatly appreciate and that I will take as constructive feedback that I can carry with me as well. So I will leave you on one last Bible verse. For I know the plans I have for you, declares Adonai, plans for peace and not for calamity, to give you a future and a hope. And I am so grateful that God has a future, and I have hope in that. And if my story can help or inspire even one person, then I am glad that it can be told, and I think that it is worth being told. Thank you so much for listening.